Let's look at some moral issues of God. So I hope that gives you just a brief understanding of those that you can't get in one setting. Look at some moral issues, moral attributes. Love. That perfection of God by which He is eternally moved to self-communication. Love. His love is in His goodness. Love is exercised in His goodness. That perfection of God which promotes Him to deal bountifully and kindly with all His creatures. That perfection of God which prompts Him to deal bountifully and kindly with all His creatures. If I had, what would keep me in gratitude, if I was poor, ugly, no home, no house, no wives, I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, I was a mute. I came that way, lost my leg, had cancer, name all the stuff that I don't like. Can I still have gratitude towards God if He saved me? The gratitude that I'm seeing that keeps me abreast is that if He has saved me. That should flow in my heart, that I may have all the other characteristics I don't like, but if God has saved me by His grace, He's loved me and saved me. His grace, the unmerited goodness or love of God to those who forfeit it and are by nature under a sentence of condemnation. Grace. Goodness, His love provides goodness, provides grace. Number 3, mercy. The goodness or love of God shown to those who are in misery or distress, irrespective of their desire. Mercy. He shows mercy. His love. That's His goodness. Number 4 is long-suffering. Goodness, grace, mercy, long-suffering. That's what His love is to illustrate it. That aspect of the goodness or love of God, in virtue of which He bears with the forward and evil in spite of their long continuing disobedience. He's long-suffering. Thank goodness. Every time someone falls into sin, they fall into adultery, they fall into lying, they fall into disobedience, they fall into alcoholism, they fall into all kinds of things, and Christians do that. And God is long-suffering. In the Old Testament, you'd get stoned if you were caught in adultery. God had very little patience, apparently, in the Old Testament. He'd just open up the ground and you'd fall through it. In His love in the New Testament, He's long-suffering, and that's why I hear this all the time. Well, God still loves me. I mean, they've gone through a divorce, they've gone through adultery, they've gone through fornication, they've gone through destroying families, they've gone through all kinds of stuff, and when they come out on the other side, they keep saying, well, God has forgiven me and God has saved me. And it's for their own benefit. I don't know why if they'd have thought that, they would never, what keeps you from doing that? What has kept me for 45 years being married to the same woman? I've never been beyond that. Why have I not fallen off the bench? It's because if you have a right theological concept of God, it keeps you alert. And yet, the fact of it is, when all these people go through all of this trouble, then they want to come back and say, well, God was long-suffering with me. So they pre-do it. In other words, if you understand the beginning of it, but God is long-suffering. God does do that. It's very interesting. So God is, and then next, not only is God love, number two is He's righteousness and holiness. The moral attribute of God is love. The second one is righteousness or holiness. The one attribute that God has that cannot change is His love. Number two is His righteousness or holiness. He is righteous, He is holy, and He is 100% righteous and 100% holiness. That perfection of God, in virtue of which He eternally wields and maintains His own morals, excellent. He hates sin, demands purity in His moral character. That perfection of God, in virtue of which He eternally wields and maintains His own moral excellence. God can never be but perfect in His will, His excellence, and He upholds what He says. He can never change. He is total 100% righteousness. And if you plant that in your mind, if you plant that in your grasp, in your understanding, then when you start beginning in the flesh, beginning to question things, you have to come back and say, no, wait a minute. I understand God and His character is perfect. Okay, He's perfect. I understand that He is totally righteous, and what He wills is righteous. He could not be God if He wasn't totally righteous. If God could not be the God that we know as God if He was not totally righteous, and He upholds His moral character. We don't. Our character is flawed. We want to be righteous, but we can't maintain it. God can will to maintain His character. He can never not change His hatred of sin. 1 Peter 1:15, Revelation 4:8, Isaiah 6:3. Hey, I might get to that. Isaiah 6:3. What does Isaiah 6:3 say? We should know that by heart. What are the three words? God is what? Isaiah 6:3. Jimmy, I think you had that verse Wednesday night. Three words. God is three words. Remember on that outline?
Holy, holy.
Holy, holy, holy. He's triple holy. He's triune holy. And the next one is justice. The attribute that's totally perfect is His justice. That perfection of God by which He maintains Himself over against every violation of His holiness, and shows in every respect that He is the Holy One. Justice. That perfection of God by which He maintains Himself over against every violation of His holiness, and shows in every respect that He is the Holy One. He will deal perfectly with those who violate His holiness. We always are complaining, well, we didn't get justice. We're always constantly coming up with something where justice wasn't performed. We have a flawed system of justice. It's just not right that this happened, or it's just not right that this happened. Well, in God's way, everything He does is perfectly justice. It's just. Revelation 15:3, Revelation 19:2, and Romans 1:23, Romans 1:32. So, if you grasp the attribute of God and you form your thinking of God in that concept, it helps you understand God and understand why things are the way they are. I just don't see how God can do this. Well, if you understand, if God does it, it's going to be just according to His will. And He's God, and so God has a right to be God. But what He does is right and just. He cannot make a wrong decision. So to have a knowledge of God, to think of creatures and the Creator as alike is to rob God of the most of His attributes and reduce Him to the status of His creatures. We want to make God like us. We want to make God like us. We want to put God on our level. We want God to think like we think. It can never be. There's a great gulf between God and me. I can't think like God. I don't have the ability to think God. I'm not able to think like God. God is much smarter than I am. Believe me, I can think better than a 3-year-old. But they don't think so. A 3-year-old is much smarter than you are, right? At one of my house the last 3 days, she's much smarter than I am.